Good evening. And I'm very hesitant because this is like our fifth time starting this live. Like literally 5 times. Okay. I think
Okay.
it's going to work. Okay, great. Hello, I am Sharindria Robinson.
And I'm Marcus Robinson.
And thank you for watching another episode of Faith, Family, and Finance.
Yes.
All I can say is I'm tired. And I have to get this out, y'all. I'm tired.
You're tired.
Yes, and I should be. I'm very tired.
Oh, I'm gonna let you go and start this story.
I don't have anything to say.
We're gonna call this Faith Family Finances the Snake Edition.
Snake hunt. Yeah.
Snake Hunt
Snake
Edition.
hunt. Welcome. When you come on, tell us hello. Let's see. We gotta get to so we can see these comments.
Yeah, really.
Let us know. Hey, Taylor. Taylor, did you see our post about the snake? So y'all, we just did a 2-hour snake hunt. 2 hours.
Literally.
Marcus finally went to the store to get mothball stop, and we finally killed it. I'm done. That's in the story. All while trying to get the boys ready for bed, get them dinner. Didn't I have to try to feed them in the midst of all this as well?
Oh yeah.
You eat me and then get on this by 9 o'clock. Sorry, so that's why he had to start at 9:15. She said I'm logging off.
You logging off
I'm
if we talking about
done. I'm done. Just don't go to my personal Facebook page and watch the video. Do not go to my personal page
It got real.
because it did. And I don't even think you wanted to kill a snake.
Initially, no.
We had just we were gonna let it go.
I was
but
frustrated.
he played with us for too long. He hid. So welcome. Hey Summer. Hey everyone. Thank you again so much for joining us for another episode. I think we're still gonna have the same end time. Hey Kristen, I need your input tonight. I think we're gonna have the same end time. I'm so tired. I can't even get my words out. So Marcus, come on. Let's do this. We are talking about tonight your freedom of speech. And I'm not even going back to the Constitution. I can pull that up, but I didn't even have time to doing that because we spent the past 2 hours doing what we were doing. Go to my personal page if you want to know.
I was killing snakes.
Stop. Listen. In this season, the season of the cell phone, in this season, our people are making posts. They are speaking their mind, speaking truth to power. You can call it whatever you want to call it. But my question tonight, the question we are posing to you tonight is, what are you willing to lose? I wrote it down. But what are you willing to give up? No, I don't know what I wrote. What will your post cost you? Sorry, y'all.
What will your post cost
What
you?
will your post, P-O-S-T, cost, C-O-S-T, what will your post cost you? That's what we're talking about tonight. It's your page, your social media account, but what will it cost you if you decide to post whatever it is that's on your mind, that you're big and bad enough to post? We've had at least, I think, 3 instances in South Carolina, at least 2 that I know of in the Midlands, where individuals just recently have lost their jobs because of their social media posts. We have a high school student who we know who've been, I think he was expelled from school because of something he posted on social media. And we have, I think, college students also. One of the college presidents came out and made a statement on behalf of the university because of people making posts. Now, all of these instances were racial posts, but it doesn't have to be. It can be anything. And I think we have a video. Do we want to show this video? I think we have a video we want to show that's not an overly sensitive topic because we're not trying to go very, very, very heavy tonight. But it is something that we need to talk about.
Absolutely. So I guess we're talking about freedom of speech, social media, and your boss. At least that's what this clip kind of addresses. So let's
this one addresses your
this
boss.
particular clip. So let's just take a look and see what we got.
When it comes to social media, that freedom might come at a price. It's an issue we are seeing more Often, people getting into hot water with their employers over what they post on Facebook and Twitter. Good evening, I'm Craig DeGrelli.
And I'm Megan Matthews. Just this week, a Council Bluffs teacher called our newsroom to share her story about being called to the principal's office.
Let me know if you
over
can't
her
hear
Facebook
this.
Posts. It raises important questions about privacy, free speech, and an employer's right to protect their image. KMTV Action 3 News reporter Kevin Boughton has this story you'll see only on 3.
Craig and Megan, these clicks and taps you make on a keyboard, they're simple sounds, but when you combine them with a long day at work, you're tired, you're frustrated, and social media, it can lead to some big problems. A teacher in the Council Bluffs Community Schools District told us she faced the possibility of disciplinary action after her principal spotted some Facebook posts and didn't like what she read. This teacher posted in part, "Would the people who have never taught please stop telling me how to teach? Let me do my job. Trust me, I know what I'm doing."
Nothing you don't want your grandmother to see is kind of the rule we use.
Wessel counsels UNO students about navigating the job market in the age of likes, posts, and tweets. We showed her a few of this teacher's posts.
In reading that, I would say she's venting her frustrations, but she's doing it in a way that she's representing her school.
Superintendent Dr. Martha Bruckner says the district and the Iowa Department of Education have policies which apply to personal conduct away from work.
It does say to be careful what you post on your own personal pages, especially if on your page it has our name next to you.
On Facebook, we asked if you think your employer has the right to punish you for posts you make on your own time from your own devices. Here's what some other viewers had to say. Valerie says, yes, if it's about the company while you're still employed. If you need to post negative info on social media, wait until you're a former employee. Rachel tells us, as long as it's not illegal, it should not be punishable. That's my opinion. Ken Dean says, my coworkers, managers, bosses, all blocked. My Facebook page is for me, my family, and friends.
That communication style says a lot to employers about how professional you are, because on the flip side, so we talked about it can harm your chances of employment. 29% of employers say that they've hired someone based on something positive they've seen on social media.
And right now on our Facebook page, a great conversation going on about this issue. Just search for Action 3 News. And late today, this teacher told us she's in fact not facing any type of discipline at work, and she's happy this whole mess has been deleted. Kevin Boughton, Action 3 News.
What do they say? Count to 10 before you hit send. I think everybody has an opinion about this story.
Uh-oh. All right. So, Taylor said, wait, no, not right there, right? Taylor says she found all of her colleagues and blocked them. Okay.
That's a way to do it.
She found all her people and blocked them. It's just her opinion. Summer, you are free to post what you want, but not free.
But not free from the consequences, I guess, of posting what you want.
Mm-hmm. If you wouldn't say it out loud at your job. Okay, yep, I got it. So they said one of the taglines, and you hear people say this, especially when we talk to, I always say children and youth, the college students, but it goes to everybody, adults as well. Count to 10 before you press send.
Right.
Like sometimes when we make a post in anger, we'll type it, or even an angry text. The thing is now everybody can screenshot whatever it is you say. Everybody can screenshot whatever it is that you say, and they can try to use that against you. And so count to 10 before you press send. But now people are saying, I'm tired of this. I want to speak truth to power. I want to say what I want to say. This one was, unfortunately for this young lady, a mild case where there weren't any consequences as far as her losing her job. She just got called into the principal's office. But we know, in lieu of like all these protests that have been going on and things that have been happening, unfortunately, the very ugly side of people have been coming out, like very ugly side. Like people calling individuals monkeys and gorillas and all this stuff. And I've seen it on my page. And so I know it's been on other people's page where they've just been saying, get her fired or get him fired. And they will screenshot and share these posts all over. so that even though you have blocked your boss, Taylor, not that you would post anything that's derogatory about anyone, but even though we blocked certain people, there's still a way for those things that I guess we don't want, like this lady said in the post, your grandmother to hear, like those things we don't want other people to hear, there's still a way for them to get out there.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
how do we deal with that?
Well, these conversations that we mean to be private are not as private as we think. You know?
But do we mean for them to be private if we post them on social media?
Well, that's a whole nother thing. You know, are you posting them to just your friends? Is it a public post? You know,
Good point.
How's it being posted?
Right.
Who's it going to? Who did you tag in it?
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, it's almost a loaded question to say, you know, if I have a social media presence, how can I use it?
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, it's your information, it's your password, it's your stuff. You know, it's your voice.
Right. Another question I have then, because most of these people, when they've tried to get people fired because they made derogatory posts, is because they list their employer on their social media page. So if you go to most people's page, not everyone, but those of you who are watching, let us know. Do you have your employer listed on your page? I know on my page it says I work for Clear Vision Seminars and Consulting. Ironically, it's just a company that I own, but if I didn't, would I still put, if I worked for a school district, would I put that on there? Or if I worked for, I think I have the church. And even though it's Mount Olive AME Church, it's still a part of a larger denomination. So now when I go out, when I speak, or when I post, am I also representing that organization as well? And can they try to hold me accountable for what I do in my private life, offline or off the job, if you will? I don't know if I'm ever off that job. I don't know. I got some issues with that, but whatever. Will they try to post what I do off the clock if I'm ever off the clock? And tie that to my social media page. I don't know. Y'all know what I'm saying.
It's an interesting thing. I mean, because the reality is everybody's concerned about imagery and how they're being, how they're being represented or misrepresented in some cases. So it's kind of like, okay, if I'm a private business establishment and I'll represent staffing, our family owns a 25-year-old staffing company with several locations in South Carolina, and we want to be represented a certain way. My father and my mother, they started this company. They had certain ideals about how they wanted to be represented. And we, as, the beneficiaries of this, we actually have to uphold what was started. It's a part of us. And so when it comes down to social media, when we're hiring, we look at people's social media pages. We look to see whether or not they did list their employer or didn't list their employer. Because I look at it this way, if you're not telling me who you work for, that's saying that you're probably not that serious.
No, or you want to be private, like what Taylor just posted.
I'm talking from strictly from an employer standpoint.
Okay.
Because resumes don't mean much to us anymore.
Okay.
So we have to figure out a deeper way to get to who you are. Resumes once upon a time before social media was a situation where you put down everything about yourself as far as your work. You put your work history, your school, your this, your that, any organizations you're a part of. Now, people lie so much, we have to go deeper because resumes really don't mean much. It's unfortunate, but that's where we are. So we look at social media, we look at what you say, we look at how you say it, we look at who you're tagging in these posts. Who do we have in common? Mutual folks.
Yeah, I've done that when I've hired as well. When I'm trying to get to know more about a person, I will try to go to their page. Normally they're not my friend, but I'll know somebody that knows them, and then you just reach out. I mean,
I will text somebody in a minute if I know somebody that because I'm trying to get at your character. Nobody really likes to just simply hire for short term. So everybody's trying to really figure out who the best fit is, and whether it's fair or not is not the issue. But I'm just telling you how employers think. We have almost 75 clients that we represent. Okay. So these are 75 businesses that we represent, that we provide labor, that we provide staffing for. So their responses to us is always send a resume, let me know about their social media, let me know whether or not they are a perfect fit. And you don't know whether or not they're a perfect fit based on paper, but you can look at those videos.
Yeah, I don't think it's fair.
It is what it is.
It is, but I agree with like what I think Summer and Taylor saying, like they don't like to list or won't list their employer on social media.
Summer says never will.
Yeah, don't list their employer on social media because these are how these individuals got tracked down. Now, there are companies that can go out there, whether you're friends with people who work with you or not, and they can find out how to look at what you got on your social media page, especially if it's something criminal. But, which I don't think that fits anybody who's on this live or watching this replay. But, Summer made a good point, and I wanted to harp on that because it's something I always forget to do. Because there are so many things I want to post that I do want to be public and I want whoever the world to see. But then there are so many things that are private that I only want our friends to see. But I forget. I don't always remember to go back and change my settings from public to private. I try when I put the kids on social media to remember to make it that my friends only and those who I tag see it. But I don't always remember that. So you constantly have to vacillate between public and private if you're trying to keep people from seeing posts. It gets to be too much after a while. And then you have the feature if someone tags me in a post. So if someone tags you in a post and you're not savvy enough, I've set my page up so that you can tag me all day long. It won't show on my page. It won't show on my page until I go and accept it or allow it to show on my page.
Right.
And I'm having to do that primarily because of the positions that I hold and where I work, and people posting all kind of crazy stuff, like tagging me in crazy stuff. I do not need you tagging me in club flyers on my page. Sorry, I just can't. I mean, I can't have that as a part of my image. And my kids, sometimes if we're showing them where we posted them on Facebook and they're just scrolling through, I don't need them to see anything inappropriate on my page. I actually block or unfollow those people who do stuff like that. But we have to, it's this thin line between me being able to say what it is I want to say and express myself in the manner in which I feel like I have the right to do, and being quote unquote censored, or having my every word looked at under a microscope. You know, I do feel like if you want to know more about me professionally, go to LinkedIn, but don't judge me on what I post on social media. And it's not just Facebook. I mean, whether it's Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, whatever, don't judge me based on what you see on my social media page.
So Taylor says her settings are set to friends only. If I want to share, I'll switch to public. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. True. I know a college professor, well, I would say he's a college professor, but a pastor who thought he had a job, was getting a job. She was getting a job at a church as the pastor of a church. And the church was a mixed congregation. And this pastor was African American, female, and this was a mixed congregation. And what ended up happening, the person just knew they had the job. They'd actually been told, I think, that they had the job. I think they'd been told, but you got to get it in writing.
Right.
But they'd been told that they had the job. Some people from the church committee went and started digging, y'all. They started digging and found some stuff on her Facebook page. Not even anything that she had posted, but something that someone had tagged her in. And maybe she had participated in a program and she had on just kind of Afrocentric attire and that kind of stuff. And they immediately just thought that this individual was too radical to lead. Wow. Or to be a part of their congregation. I mean, within a matter of days, the whole offer was off the table, and she didn't have the job because someone was digging around on her social media. And this person didn't even make the post. Someone tagged them in it, but they were at the event. They were dressed the way they were dressed. And for them, they were celebrating that part of their culture, that part of their heritage. But it posed a problem for their job, for that job opportunity. It was a great job opportunity. But I still believe what God has for you is for you, and that just wasn't where they were supposed to be at that time. But nevertheless, and they know that that's how they did it because that's how they found it, because when they were asking the questions, you could see where they had made copies of what I said church, so
First
it's
of
old
all,
school.
copies,
They had made
yeah.
copies of what was on the person's page, which was no big deal at all, in my opinion.
Wow. Well, I think it's only going to get more interesting. That's for sure, because people are not necessarily pressing flesh anymore at this point. So everything is online. Just think about that for a minute. At least if you were going to the meeting or going to the interview, going to wherever, you might could explain yourself. You might could, charm the person. You could, but right now that's not an option.
Well,
That meeting is going to be online.
so again, thank you if you're just joining us, or if you're joining us on another page. We probably have shared this to some other pages. I'm not sure if we had or not, or if you just jumped into the conversation tonight. But if you're just joining us tonight, we're talking about what will your post cost you when you are posting to social media, no matter which social media platform it is. What will that post cost you? And do you care? Are you willing? Oh, let me ask you this: are you willing to lose your job? Think about this, y'all. Are you willing to lose your job? Are you willing to lose your vote? Because it's voting season. This is we're getting ready for a primary here. It's voting season. Are you willing to lose the vote of your constituents? Hey, y'all. Hey.
What's up,
Are you
Montez?
willing to lose the votes of your constituents based on what you posted on social media? Are you willing to lose relationships? Like, people are falling out of relationships. They're like, oh, wait, I thought I knew you, but I just saw your Facebook post and I realized that I really don't know you, or you really don't know me. So what is it that you are willing to lose based on your post? If you really feel like, this post this is true, this is who you are, this is how you feel, are you willing to sacrifice in the name of free speech? What are you willing to lose?
What's interesting is it takes a little bit more thought to write something or type something or text something.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing if somebody offends you, say something to you, and you just kind of just spout off. But to actually sit there and really text this thing, make sure you get the spelling right, make all this kind of stuff, you're really thinking about what you're saying. So then when you text this stuff, when we operate on social media, is this a true representation of our true self? It's almost like this is where we are, and I think this is where we're gonna be for a while.
I think we can get caught up in the moment, though. Just like you get caught up in the moment and you get in a heated argument with the individual. I've seen people get into these same type arguments on social media. I had someone, something simple, something is simple. And I say simple, but it's not simple because it's gotten people in a lot of trouble.
What?
Posting or making their profile picture something that says Black Lives Matter. Like, it's gotten people in a lot of trouble. Yeah. I heard someone put it very well yesterday, I think, when they said, when I say Black Lives Matter, and then you come back and say all lives matter, it's like saying, I live in a subdivision and my house is on fire. The fire department comes and the fire department starts spraying water on all the other houses. Right. All the other houses don't need water at that time because my house is the only one that's on fire. Right. So my house is the only one that needs water. It's not to say that all the other houses in my neighborhood don't matter, not important. We're not addressing that right now. What we're addressing right now is the heat and the fire and whatever that's on me. And so this is why we're saying that Black Lives Matter. So I've had so many friends or colleagues or whatever get caught up in this controversial statement because either people on their jobs or people in their church or people, even that they live with don't understand why they're making such a post. Like, it's one of the most controversial sayings, but when you say that, when you make that post, is that something that could cost you your job? Would people say that you're too radical? Would people say that I don't know.
Well, think about it like this. There are certain, whether it's race, whether it's religion, money, politics, these are divisive. They can be, I should say. They can be very divisive topics, and they oftentimes force you to be on one side or the other. And that's why I know, like, when we first got into business, they would always tell you when you go to a networking session, you don't talk about business, politics.
You don't talk about politics, yeah.
You don't talk about religion. Yeah. You don't talk about certain things because it can be quote unquote divisive. The thing is, where we are now, you know, for something as simple as a statement, Black Lives Matter, some people associate that with an organization. I'm just saying Black Lives Matter because that's who's in my house. I don't know anything about the organization. You know what I mean? But I was saying Black Lives Matter in 1991 when NWA came out talking about police brutality.
Right.
So it's not new for us. You know, or when Dr. King was assassinated in 1968 and James Brown had to do a concert to calm people down. And he talked about how Black Lives Matters. And that's where the song came out, Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, 1968. So it's one of those things we got to understand that this is not about organizations. This is about people's lives.
But you can be viewed as radical. You know, like you're too radical, you're too controversial if you're making that type of statement, when I may see you in the light as a conservative businessman. And now here you are making comments like this and referencing NWA and making these types of posts. You know, what happens then when people see you in a different way, or because you made this post, say, you know what, I was going to go with Marcus and give him this contract, but now I can't do that because they see a different side of you. And that's what's happening in America.
Yeah.
That is what's happening.
Yeah, that's what's been happening. Montez said,
okay.
Montez says, I use social media pages to help decide business decisions and partnerships based on social media accounts. I think it's a reflection of who they are at the time. The pictures and the posts give you a glimpse of personality.
And that's what we were saying before you got on. Montez, many people are doing things similar to this, right? That's what we were saying, right?
Absolutely.
Many people. But unfortunately, people are losing their jobs because of this, or people are not getting jobs because of this. On the flip side, I think the article, the clip that you showed earlier said that maybe 20-something% of people, 29% of people do get hired because of positive things that people see on their social media pages. And, you know, when we say social media, we're looking at everything from YouTube to LinkedIn to everything in between.
Right.
And I would like to just think that when people want to know about me professionally, they'll just go to my LinkedIn page. Well, I don't like to think that. I would like you to just go to my website. But, you know, because I don't keep up my LinkedIn page like I should, shame on me.
Was hacked.
But, oh yeah, it was hacked. Sorry. But you would like to think that people, if they want to know more about you professionally, that they would just go to your LinkedIn page, but that's not what people are doing. People are digging and they're trying to find everything that they can find on you, whether they want to use that for you or against you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other thing is when it comes down to it, you know, there are things that you will have to make a stand about. Because, like, really, a lot of times, believe it or not, poverty has become a controversial issue.
I don't even understand.
You know,
he said poverty has become a controversial issue.
Because, so, for instance, the government is going to issue out money every year. Now, depending on who's in control of the government at the time, whatever party's in control, that money's going to go a certain way. And, you know, for us as business people, we follow the money. That's how we follow the contracts. That's how we stay in business. But, you know, when it comes down to who's the recipients of these dollars, you know, that changes. And so people are vying and fighting for these dollars. Some people don't want to help the poor. Some people want to continue to only help the wealthy. You know, which, you know, quite frankly, doesn't do anything for our homeless.
Don't get me started on that. Well, but it's true. I mean, it really is true.
Yeah, I mean, so it becomes a situation when you vote, and you vote a certain way, and you voted for a certain person, which is why people don't like to talk about who they vote for.
We don't like to talk about voting. We can't talk about who we're voting for. We can't advocate. I can't tell you to go out and vote for Hamilton Grant on Tuesday in the election. I can't do that for Richland County Council. I can't do that for District 8. I can't do that, right?
Because those alliances might be looked at as...
Right. You know, I can't do that. Yeah, just did. Okay, so you have to vote. You have to vote now. You can't just, you have to vote in November. But in most counties, you are voting also on this Tuesday. We're voting on this Tuesday. And we have to make sure we realize that change begins at the local level. Summer talks about, makes a good point, that sometimes she has to explain to her friend, explain to people as a Caucasian person talking to people about the Black Lives Matter movement. People don't understand, and it takes education, and you don't understand what the movement means, and we're so misunderstood. But that's the problem. You don't want to sit down and talk about it. People don't want to talk about the issue. The ninth, yes. People don't want to talk about the issue. Right. And we shy away from the conversation, and it just doesn't make sense. And I'm glad he popped on. I actually heard that comment from Javertis. I don't know if he was on early, but when I was telling you that I heard it somewhere, that's where I heard it. I heard it from Javertis. So the story I gave earlier, let me give credit. I didn't know where I heard it. I've been listening to so many things lately, but the topic tonight is, what will your posts cost you? Where will your post land you? Will your post on social media land you in the unemployment line? Will your post land you with just a relationship that can't be repaired? Where will the post land you? And what does freedom of speech mean? Now, you said something, Marcus, that was very key on days ago. Yesterday, we were talking about this. And you said freedom of speech. Freedom does not mean reckless. And so oftentimes we've been seeing people going off on social media, even our top political officials, down to people we've never heard of before. But they've just been going on and on and on just on this rant on social media. And some of it is reckless. But do they have the right to do that? Even if you go to the highest elected official in our land, when I think our president said that he was going to he wanted to try to censor Twitter or do something with Twitter because they were trying to censor his comments. That's what he was saying. When they weren't censoring his comments, they were fact checked. Right. And he said that, no, that wasn't right because they were fact checked, which is something that we don't do. We just post a lot of stuff and we don't fact check. But what happens when people do go off and they make these reckless, damaging comments and feel like, there are no consequences because this is my page? What happens? Nothing.
In many cases.
I mean, but who's going to fire the president? If your opinion is that I'm saying that a lot of the stuff, so many people, because we've never had an elected official who tweets so much. So, people have a problem with that. Javerta says the things that kills me is the number of white evangelical Christians that are attacking black men and women of faith and are saying Black Lives Matter because of what the organizations believe. Oh, because of what the organizations believe. Well, let me just say, and I think I saw Roland Martin go off and make this comment recently. I was just watching that before I came up here. I was talking about I don't know what Paula White said, but whatever Paula White said, it ticked off Roland Martin. And he was really going in on her. Somebody sent it to me on Facebook. But he was really going in on her. And so let's just transition, since Javerta's has brought up the faith community, and this is on my notes also. Do you expect persons, where I wrote it down at? Oh, yeah. Do you expect your leaders, your pastors, and all these people who are standing before you on Sunday morning or Wednesday or whenever you get the word, do you expect them to address the social media issues of the day? Do you expect them to talk about the riots and the protests and go back and bring up Martin Luther King's speech like you were talking about to me, the letter from the Birmingham jail, and so many other pieces of great work? Do you expect them to address that, or do you want your leaders to just, tell you that Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so, and God is going to do it again, and he's going to turn it around, and he's going to work in your favor, and have a blessed day? Wow. I just said a whole lot.
That's a whole lot. I mean, because reality is every church, every Reformation was birthed for a reason. Mm-hmm. And so it's one of those things you have, you almost have to address why that church, why that pastor, why that minister, how did they come to be? because every church wasn't just birthed out of the fact that Jesus was Lord and, it's a good idea. Some churches were birthed out of turmoil. And so it's one of those things, because that's the case, we can't ignore that. Taylor says the First Amendment gives you the freedom of speech, but not the freedom to oppress. Really, I mean, this is only my personal opinion, but I believe that any and every prophet or prophetess, anybody who speaks for God, has to have a political component to their ministry, because at the end of the day, politics will govern how we feed the poor and how we do the ministry of Christ.
Man, let me do a little bit of...
So, for instance, when you talk about how we handle widows, how we handle the poor, how we handle the sick, healthcare, that was the biggest divisive issue of the Obama administration. So you have to have, as a faith leader, a perspective on the issues of that day, of this day.
If you read the Bible, I don't even know how people can preach. If you read the Bible is just full of everything that we're going through today, from Genesis to Revelation. The Bible, and even what Jesus stood for, what Old Testament prophets talked about, it was always about oppression and liberation and freedom. I mean, the whole thing. Let's go all the way back to Exodus. Let's go back to those beautiful children of Israel. Let's go back to Moses, the 10 Commandments, all that stuff y'all read, all the stuff we talk about in Sunday school, vacation, Bible school. And I know this Faith, Family, and Finance and not Mount Olive Church, but let me tell you, the children of Israel, they were slaves for who? They were slaves. They worked for Pharaoh. Right. They were slaves. They wanted to become free. They needed their freedom. Moses was there, who we would look at as our modern day leader. He was trying to lead them to their freedom. They got out. They were free. And Moses was trying to set up the whole systems and the economic systems and tell them this is the order of the day. This is how we're going to do. These are our laws given to us by God. They didn't have to go to the voting booth and vote, but he was trying to set those things up. And what did they do? They complained. They complained and they complained. And sooner or later, they overthrew him. Okay, we don't want you as our leader no more. We're going to choose this person as our leader. We're going to find somebody else. And then they got to this point where they said, forget it. All these prophets and people are over us. We want a king. We going on through the Bible, y'all. We have made our way up to Samuel and Chronicles and Kings. They say now we want a king.
You sound like you read your
Bible. I try my best to read about it, but they choose kings. And God was like, wait a minute, we don't want a king. Like, I am your king. And they was like, nope, we want a king. And God gave them Saul. And they had a king. And then they got mad about that. He wasn't a man after God's heart. But David was. And God said, even though I've made this man a king, you know what? This is not going to work. Okay, I got to get off this tangent. But I just need you to go through the Bible and see how all this is working. They did their own thing, just like us in America now are doing our own thing. And God gave them over to a reprobate mind. He let them do like, this is what you want to do? Well, go ahead and do what you want to do. So they were oppressed. They were taken captive. The Babylonians came, and God said, you know what? I'm going to let these people who are worse off than you come and have rule over you and be over you. They're going to oppress you. This you get the prophet Habakkuk, Obadiah, Nahum, Joel, all them guys, all them on the scene. They went and did whatever they wanted to do. And the prophets were like, you know what? Let me come and tell y'all, this is what God is saying. When Jeremiah was talking, the people were oppressed. You're like, okay, she's really preaching. I'm sorry. But the people were oppressed. They were oppressed people. This is how we get the book of Lamentations, because Lamentations mean crying. And Jeremiah felt like I was always crying. He was called the weeping prophet. He felt like he was always crying because he was always bringing the people bad news. And Jeremiah did not want to tell the people what God said, because it's like, I'm always giving them bad news. And he tried to hold it in, and the people said, he got to the point where he had to say, I can't hold this in anymore, because this is like what? Fire. Shut up in my bones. It was fire. He said it's like fire. I can't even hold this in anymore.
Apparently.
Stop. And so there's always, when Jesus came on the scene, it was the Sadducees and the Pharisees. Pontius Pilate, who do you think that was? He was a leader. The whole Bible is about injustice and oppression and liberation. That's why Jesus said, I come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. Whom the Son set free is free indeed. But it's always been about that, y'all. It's always. It's always.
This is the thing.
When you I'm done for the night.
When you go, and this, but you know what?
So you can't come in 2020. I'm sorry. So you cannot come in 2020.
Pastor Ren.
Sorry. So you cannot come in 2020 and say, I'm not going to mix, politics with religion. You can't come in 2020 and say, we're not going to address this. It's always been addressed. If you preaching the Bible, you have to preach. Okay.
Y'all, I got a button.
You better not press up.
I got a button that y'all wouldn't believe.
You better not.
But I'm not going to do it to her tonight. But interesting enough, as you can see, this is one positive thing about the coronavirus. It's giving pastors an opportunity to study more.
I knew this before the virus came along. I resent that.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that you didn't know.
Jeez.
But I'm gonna make this statement because I just do stuff like this. Let me tell you, when we get ready to go back to church, and if your pastor is not preaching something more relevant and different, you probably need to find another church, because this is a time where prayer should have been happening a lot. Your man, your woman of God should have been in God's face a lot. There should be a clear-cut direction for the ministry. There should be a clear-cut purpose for the membership that go there, and you should have a clear-cut agenda for your life. You should have a life plan. We've been out of church 3 months. Mm-hmm. We've been out of church 3 months. No laying on the hands, none of that. So it's one of those situations where we've got to do better. We've got to expect more. And the good thing is we have a pastor that expects more of herself. And she does a really, really good job of being not only just a theologian, but a preacher, a prophet, somebody who really can speak the oracles of God and connect the dots. Because the reality is, this is not the time for Bible stories. For those of us who are Christians, people of faith, this is the time where our faith has to be activated. This is the time where we don't get to just simply quote scripture. This is where we have to walk the scripture out. Okay? And so when it comes down to these things that we're hearing from our leadership, our country's leadership, a lot of this stuff shouldn't really surprise us, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. Okay? We shouldn't be concerned. What we should be doing is getting in position. So faith, family, and finances, this is the crux of ministry. Okay? The crux of ministry is faith, family, and finances. Okay? And until we get those three things right, did that boy call me a deacon? He did. I'm gonna need you. You know what? Yeah. Until we get those things right, it's gonna be very, very difficult for us to be free. Okay. Pastor Ren talked about the children, Moses and the children of Israel, and there's a big difference between being liberated and being free.
You said that.
When it comes, for instance, the children of Israel, they were liberated. Moses had gone in, petitioned to Pharaoh, let my people go. They go across this water, this Red Sea, it opens up. And as soon as they get to the promised land, as Pastor Ren said, they started to the Bible says, the people began to complain. What Moses could not do was change their mindset. Only thing he could do is liberate them. They did not get free until years later, a whole generation, if I'm not mistaken, later. And so for us, we have to make sure that, okay, when we get in position, we have to also operate in freedom. And sometimes that's very difficult to do because it asks that question, what does it cost you? Freedom is not free. Freedom is not free. Liberation can be free. I wasn't born into slavery. Okay? So I was liberated on paper when I got here. However, freedom is a whole nother thing. Okay? So it's something that we have to work toward. We have to clearly define it, first of all. And I think that's probably where we are. We have to clearly define our positions when it comes down to how we handle ourselves. How do we handle our families? How do we handle our finances, the poor, our churches? How do we do that kind of stuff? Deacon Marcus Robinson just got promoted to evangelist.
I love y'all.
So then if I'm the evangelist, Summer, what are you?
Y'all are funny.
Don't make me start calling all the people out who I know should be in ministry but acting up.
Leave them alone.
Taylor. That's it. A mindset shift. Absolutely right. That's where we are. And so I don't honestly believe that people want to polarize everything. But you have to vote. We talking about voting. You vote your issues. You vote your beliefs. Okay? You don't vote the issues of others necessarily. You don't necessarily vote the beliefs of others. And so that's why it's so sensitive, because if I know how you voted, I might know something about your belief system. Not what you tell me, but what you show me. And so that's the challenge. But at the end of the day, if we don't discuss who we really are, it becomes a situation where we can't really heal that wound. Because right now, people get really, really offended sometimes when it comes to the issues of Black people. But the reality is there was an issue that was never repaired. You know what I mean? Every other group has repair. And so it's one of those situations. I don't feel bad about addressing the fact that there was never a repair. Right. I don't feel bad about it at all, especially when I look at the statistics, and the statistics are negative. And so when it comes down to anything, it's kind of like a child when they're hurt. It's like, you don't blame a child for being hurt. You just want to go and repair it. You want to fix it, right? And so right now, that's kind of where we are. And it's funny because our faith community is starting to become more and more divided. We thought we were divided before. Now we're divided online.
Well, yeah, I think the nation is becoming more divided because we're seeing the issues of people's heart more now.
Right.
Whereas before, it's amazing. Before COVID-19, we were able to hide. There were so many hiding places, but now we really can't. We really can't hide. Ultimately, like they said, what's in you is going to come out of you. But it really is about our mindset. If we are free in our mind, I think that there isn't anything that anybody else can take from us.
And I realized, even you're gonna see, even from this platform, more relevant issues as it relates to faith, family, and finances, and how they connect. Because we can't operate in a vacuum and act as if we're good with our faith, but our finances are garbage. Our finances are garbage, but you know what I mean? We can't operate in a vacuum. So these things are connected. And so we will definitely make an attempt to connect the dots. And we will have guests on who will help us to connect the dots, because this conversation is much bigger than just us. And so we recognize that there are people all over the places having conversations. And I think that we need to make sure that you guys are an integral part of what it is we're talking about, because you have your own personal platforms as well. And I think that we have to begin to create ideas and share ideas so that we can begin to bring healing.
And I want to speak to this, and I know we have to get off for tonight. I do thank y'all for just hanging in here with us. But Montez makes a comment about people who are coward. And to be truthful, he's saying that they fear losing their job or losing their friends. And I want to take this to the pulpit. I'm going to go back to the pulpit just for a second. And just go back to the pulpit.
Should I play organ?
No, I just want to go back to the pulpit for a second. What happens is, in the line of work that I do before I became a pastor and running my company, Clear Vision Seminars and Consulting, I would help individuals obtain their 501c3 status. And I had a lot of churches who would come to me and denominations, and we would get that status, but that would be something that's separate from your church. So I would tell them, you know, your church could be over here, your 501c3 over here, whatever. Some people, though, they built, you have under, I think it was the second Bush administration, stop it, where people, where you had the whole faith initiative, and there was so many federal dollars out there for faith-based organizations. So everybody was going, and we were setting up. I was part of it. I was just getting out of grad school, setting up these faith-based organizations, and it's how we got some of the mega churches that we have in our country. People don't want to say this, but it's how we got some of those mega churches. They started getting major federal dollars. And so when you begin to give me a lot of major federal dollars, there are things I can't say anymore. Nobody will ever admit to saying that they've been bought or preachers are being bought or have been bought. But let me tell you, when you get those, they know who to give those dollars to. If you seem to be a little bit too controversial, if you have a huge following or, whatever, let me throw this money your way. Yeah, in the name of helping you build your ministry, you can do outreach programs, you can do all these things. And so we begin to do that kind of stuff. And now I'm giving you the money so I can control, thank you, Aaron, what it is that you're saying. At least that's what you think. And it has worked. It has worked. Censorship. And so now, basically, it's the true definition of sellout. It's the true definition of sellout.
Say it ain't.
And we don't want to think that we got sellouts in the pulpit. But a dollar can buy anything. It's just like it's not just the federal dollars. When you have people in your congregations, I've seen pastors, which is why I say, y'all know my story. I never wanted to be a pastor, but I always said but. I always said but or if. Like, I kind of knew it was going to happen. I never wanted it, but I always said, but Lord, but God, if I become, thank you, Montez Puppets. I said, God, if I become a pastor, allow me to be financially free so I won't have to depend on the money of the people, because I don't want anybody in the congregation thinking that they can buy me or pay enough to tell me what to say. I wanted to always be in a position where I wouldn't need the money of the people, because I would not and could not be bought. If I'm going to preach, like Summer said earlier, I need to stand up, have a conversation with the Lord, and allow the Lord to use me as a vessel and say what God wants me to say. I can't say what you want me to say. People do that in churches. They're like, Pastor, well, I don't think you should preach this. Well, Pastor, I don't think you should talk about this. Well, Pastor, you just need to leave it alone. No. You got a problem with what I'm saying, you take it over God. Okay, sorry. What will your post cost you? And if it costs you your job, do you care? I'm done. I really am done.
She's never done. I'm telling you, she's never done. Kind of like churches with large families and large financial contributions. Yeah. But you know what? A big part of that is education too. Because, for me, especially when I started teaching Kingdom Studies, it was really just about having a really proper perspective of what our obligations are in the kingdom. Because the reality is the money that we give to the kingdom, it's not ours in the first place. And so the whole idea of trying to control God's people with a dollar is a spirit of witchcraft in the first place. And most people don't like to say stuff like that, but we just celebrated Pentecost. And the reality is this is a season to see whether or not you really have him on the inside. Because if you're not willing to say what he says, you don't have him as strong as you think you do on the inside. He's not Lord yet. And so
not at all.
It's one of those things it's difficult, when we want to be on the throne, and we're all guilty of that. We're all guilty of wanting to be on the throne because, sometimes the stuff that he says is extremely uncomfortable. But the funny thing is, the thing I'm learning to get used to is the fact that when he gives you something to say, it has to do with the fact that he's trying to get his word to someone else. You already know this stuff. You already know a lot of this stuff. However, there are people in our families, there are people in our social networks, there are people in our schools, there are people in our home. They may not know this stuff, and they really honestly might believe that people who give in church almost look at it as if it's an investment or a lottery. You know, so if I give $10, God will give me $20 back.
Yeah.
If I do this, he'll do that. That is so not how kingdom finances work. The reality is he is entrusting us with whatever it is he's given us. And the better we are as stewards of his resources, the better we operate, you know, and our perspective changes. And so that's what this whole kingdom finance thing is about. And it takes faith to do it.
That's right.
And the reality is it's about legacy. So your family ultimately will follow your lead or lack thereof, leadership.
And it's always about money, but it really isn't. When you think about, I saw them. When you think
the scratch
about
off ticket, Summer, really?
Stop
Hilarious,
it. The word of the Lord tells us that Jesus said that what does the word of the Lord tell us, Marcus? No, just playing. If you have been found faithful in the use of worldly wealth, he will entrust the true riches to you. You got to be found faithful in the use of the tangible, this worldly wealth that he gives us, but that's not the true riches. Because if it was, he wouldn't say he will entrust the true riches to you. But we get it twisted and we stop and just think, oh, if my bank account is a certain way, then I'm fine. No, those are not the true riches. My health, my peace, my joy, my clarity of mind. I mean, I need all of that. So I'm going to be faithful over this so that I can get the true riches as well. Y'all, okay. Yeah.
Be faithful over a few
Y'all
things.
funny. Marcus, we've been on an hour.
Yeah. Well, we started with the snake story. So,
Stop.
you know,
Taylor said she was jumping off if we talked about
I'm just saying,
snakes.
if you want to know more, go to Sharindria's page and you'll see what we're talking
so
about.
it's on your page too.
Okay,
So go to our Facebook page, our personal pages. It was crazy, y'all. I'm just glad we made it on tonight to talk about something else. I ain't going to take a shower and I'm going to bed. I'm done. It has been a crazy past 3 hours.
Well,
yeah. But if you watch the video, I told them to use their heel and crush his head, just like the book of Genesis tells us to crush the devil's head. All right, y'all. This has been another episode of Faith, Family, and Finance. Thank you so much for joining us. Inbox us show topics. We have another exciting show lined up for you next week. We look forward to hearing more from you. If you would like to join us and be a guest on one of our shows, let us know. We would love to hear from you. Love to hear what you have to say and love to share this platform with you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night, Pastor and Evangelist. All right, worship leader.